Hey, welcome to the Overshare Pamphlet. My name is Rob, and I'm the host of this one-man show coming to you every Monday at 6 a.m. UK time. Apologies for not putting on an episode last week, but I was unfortunately away. Not unfortunately. Fortunately, I guess for me, I was away. I was on holiday, so I couldn't really find the time to record. I mean, I actually did not have any material time to actually do anything. So, yeah, but we're back. We're back, and we are, as you can see from the title, we are discussing today the new and final part, I guess, of the Wicked 2 punch, I guess, effort. So this is the second part and final part of the Wicked movies, coming out exactly actually a year later from the first a year after the first movie, and this second part is called Wicked for Good. So yeah, this is same characters, same story, basically like the same story from the play, but it was divided into two parts to make these two movies. So this is the ending, of course, of the story that we started off with the first movie. I made an episode about this already, about the first movie, a year ago, so you can go and check it out if you want. That was my review of the first movie, but this is only going to be mostly about the second movie. I will, of course, make some comparisons with the first, and also, surprisingly, when I was writing some of my notes, I also ended up making some comparisons with the Avengers movies, like the Marvel movies and all that stuff, which is very interesting. But you'll see why when I talk about it, I guess. But yeah, but overall, this is like what I thought about the movie, sort of like exploring the themes of the movie, why you should go watch it, I guess, why you should be prepared for it in a way, set your expectations to a good level to enjoy it, and also, yeah, what I liked and what I disliked about the movie, I guess, overall, and how is it faring in terms of box office compared to the previous one, and I guess also about who were my favorite performances, who were my favorite actors, I guess, in this one, who gave me the best performance, I think, in the movie. Yeah. So first things first, let's start off with what the story of the second movie is about. So as I was saying, the original story is one single play, right? And it's I think the play itself runs for almost 4 hours or something. It's quite long, but this part of the movie, I guess, this movie basically deals with the second half of the play, basically, and so it sort of almost picks up straight after the first movie. There's a bit of a slight time jump in a way, because we left off with the first movie with Elphaba basically denouncing the wizard and escaping from the capital and from the Emerald City, and going basically on her own way and try to with a promise, I guess, of fighting the wizard and exposing him. So we sort of have a little bit of a time jump. I don't know exactly how much, but by the time we start with the movie, we pick up with Elphaba trying to, disrupt the construction of the yellow brick road. And by that point, basically, she's already a bit older. Glinda, in the meantime, has been turned into the representative, I guess, of the Wizard of Oz machine and all that stuff in the Emerald City, and she's sort of become his herald in a way, and she's promised to get married to Fiyero, who is now the head of the guard, the general, I guess we could call it. He's the captain of the guards, I guess, of the Emerald City, and then we also have Madame Marble, who's also, of course, working behind the scenes with the wizard. But they're sort of the entire thing, I guess, it's still happening here, is of course, we're continuing from the previous movie in terms of hunting down the animals, basically, using them to either cage them up and turn them into the wizard's servants to help build the road, or just basically pushing them away from the city. That's one thing, and also of course Elphaba now has become, by her own, by choosing to basically side with the animals and to free them and all that stuff, she's become public enemy number one, because she's straight up against the wizard. Now, the people, of course, the point of the whole thing is that the people don't know that the wizard is a fraud, and the animals are not actually culpable of anything, but he's using them as scapegoats and as enemies, both, of course, animals and Elphaba, as enemies to unite the people and make them forget about their discontent with the way the land of Oz is. And quite effectively, I guess, because they really have a very well-oiled and well-practiced, I guess, machine of propaganda to basically pit Glinda against the Wicked Witch of the West. So they build this character out of the Wicked Witch, out of Alpha basically calling her the Wicked Witch of the West, starting all these rumors about her, about she's evil and wants to kill everyone and kill the wizard and all that stuff, and by also, I guess, denouncing her as that, they're also, by the same breath, I guess, they're trying to instead create this image of Glinda the Good, as the total opposite of what Elphaba is, and making her the good witch and the protector and the sort of herald, I guess, as I said, of the wizard and the city. So they really, these two characters, I guess, that they build with the propaganda are very much essential to fortify each other's positions in a way, in the mind of the people. So basically, Elphaba is going to keep on being, by virtue of comparison to Glinda, she's going to keep on being the ugly one, the evil one, the mischievous one, and Glinda's going to keep on being, by virtue of comparison to Elphaba, the better one, the better choice, and the more acceptable choice as what a witch should be. Now, out of all these people, the only people who actually have powers are, at this moment in the story, Elphaba and Madame Marble. Madame Marble can control the weather, I guess, most of it, while Elphaba has basically a natural predisposition to basically read a grimoire. Grimoire, yeah. Grimoire, is that how you pronounce it? I can't remember if it's Grimry. I think that's what it was. Don't ask me. I even watched the movie, but I can't remember how it's pronounced. But anyways, the book with all the spells that no one can read and all that stuff, she can read them and she can use the spells, and she has innate powers and all that stuff. But Glinda doesn't have powers. The wizard doesn't have powers. No one in the Land of Oz apparently has powers apart from the two of them. So that's quite interesting, but the people don't know that Glinda doesn't have powers, and they go the story basically, follows Elphaba as she tries to, both Elphaba and Glinda, I guess, both sides, they follow each other's sides. Elphaba trying to fight from the outside of the system, trying to convince the animals to stay, and trying to expose the wizard multiple times, failing each attempt basically, while Glinda is sort of trying to get a my theory is not my theory, but my understanding and my view of it is that she initially tries to stick with the wizard because she has another choice, but also because in a way that's the most acceptable way for her to survive. Because she doesn't have powers, she doesn't have anything else. She cannot simply just go and leave, and so she chooses to just stick to the wizard and work within the system. Although in the most of the second movie, she doesn't exactly do much up until later on in the movie, where she then decides to use the position, the very advantageous position that she's in, to actually turn the tables and work from the inside, I guess. But yeah, so eventually, basically, the story, spoiler if you don't know anything about it, so maybe you want to skip this part. But the way the story progresses basically is that Glinda doesn't get married to Fiyero. Fiyero switches sides and goes with Elphaba, who he deems to be his true love, basically. So literally leaves Glinda on the altar, at the altar, and Elphaba and him, they just run away together, and they try to work together to bring down the wizard, but by a multitude of different situations, the wizard and Madame Marble, they kill Elphaba's sister. They make her go quite, as a trap to get her out of the layer that she was in, trying to get her and kill her or whatever. Doesn't really work, but in the meantime, they get Fiyero, and he, by many different ways, Elphaba basically gets all of her support taken away from her. The animals leave and all that stuff. So, and the discontent towards the witch grows so much that the only thing she has left is to basically lean into this image that they've built for her, and ultimately, quote unquote, make the people kill her, basically, like, and kill herself, right? She sacrifices her image, I guess, at least her, not herself as a person necessarily. She doesn't die, but she just makes it seem like she dies just so that people can finally let this go and go back to just living in an harmonious way. And she basically ends up, instead, after faking her death, like, leaving with Fiyero, who is now the Scarecrow, because, like, to protect him, she turned him into, like, the Scarecrow, whatever, with a spell or anything of that. So they leave together, escape together, but with the promise made by Glinda to basically change the system from within. So Glinda basically clocks that the Wizard of Oz is actually Elphaba's real dad, and he apparently didn't know. So she brings the news to him, and he's mortified, and she basically forces him to leave Oz and, like, to go back to the real world, to his own world, which is our Earth or whatever. So she basically chases him away, and she becomes the governor of Oz. But she, by becoming the governor, like, I guess what the wizard was, but she becomes the new wizard, I guess, of Oz, like the witch of Oz, I guess. But because she gets to power, she decides to do good, the actual good, to be really earning her title of Glinda the Good, because she immediately, as soon as she gets to power, she instead does what Elphaba really wanted, which is to return the animals to live in peace with the humans. And yeah, so it's a very interesting story, I think, because, like, normally you would expect stuff like this to end up with, like, a good finale or, like, a good ending, and it sort of is not, I would say. I would argue it's not exactly like an ideal ending. It's actually a very sad movie, especially as the second movie is extremely sad, because technically, Elphaba and Glinda get separated for good. Glinda sort of knows in her heart that Elphaba is still alive, but she doesn't know for sure. And Elphaba and Fiyero have to literally leave Oz, which is the land that they grew in, because she couldn't, win her revolution. She couldn't change people's minds about herself specifically, but also the animals and everything else, and expose the wizard in a way. So she couldn't win that. She basically had to bite the bullet and sacrifice herself. I guess her only consolation is that she can live with the love of her life, which is Fiyero, but she can never live in Oz, basically, which is really, really sad. So yeah, I would say it's definitely, like, a very bleak movie in a way, like a very sad, realistic almost type of movie, and I think also very current, because it speaks about a lot of issues that are facing, of course, our world constantly, like, in terms of racism and establishment and corruption and lies and everything with the government and all that stuff. So it's definitely, like, a very current story. That's, like, why Wicked is partially is, like, one of the best plays ever, like, that people always talk about, because it is a very current story. No matter, like, how old it is as an actual play, it still is, like, eternally relevant in a way, which is very, very, very cool. But also there's a lot of relatability in terms of, like, relationships between the characters, and also love affairs and all this stuff. Like, there's a lot of that, which is very, also, I think, emotionally relatable. So yeah. Now, first off, before I talk about the good and the bad and everything else, I want to talk a bit more about the general themes that I've picked up, I guess, from the movie, and what I think the movie tries to, like, talk about with somehow in some ways very effectively, I would say. I think the biggest one, so of course some of the themes are the same ones as the first movie, because it's the same story, like, frankly, but, like, it's just a continuation of the first movie, basically. But I think for me the biggest theme that I really like, had a lot of thinking about, and really made me think a lot about the movie, was just the theme of truth, and how, sometimes truth, actually most of the times, I think also in the real world, sometimes the truth is not a matter of fact and what's logical and what's real, but it's more about what everyone else believes in. And so therefore, like, if enough people believe in something, then it becomes automatically the actual truth. Like, truth is not truth and reality, I guess, are not the ones that are made out of fact sometimes, but it's mostly what people agree is the truth. And I'm specifically referring to here to the fact that the wizard is a fraud, and the alphabet is correct, and all that. Like, people just simply all want to believe in the wizard, and they want to believe that there is an enemy, which is Elphaba, for their own convenience. And no matter how hard you try to actually show facts to people, if they don't believe in it, if the community doesn't believe in it, it will not matter. And it's a very sad takeaway, I guess, a very bleak takeaway from the movie. But it is sort of kind of the real deal. Like, it is like that in the real world as well. Like, sometimes there are so many injustices in the world, and it doesn't matter how many times you try and show something to someone as well that is objectively true. It doesn't matter if most people believe in that to be the case. They will keep on, believing in that, and it's very hard to, like, actually show facts and show truth when it comes to injustices. Like, if the establishment is protected by the people, and it's like, you're not able to change their minds, that's it. Like, the truth is automatically made by what the majority thinks. So, yeah. Still, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't fight for it. I think that's not what the movie wants to say as well. The movie wants to say that you should still try to fight and, sort of live your truth, no matter how hard it is, but still try and, as Elphaba says, like, defy gravity, defy the establishment, defy the what most people believe to be acceptable. And it's not only Elphaba who does it. It's Glinda to a certain extent, in a different way, as I said, from within. It's Fiyero, and it's also Bach. Like, they're all in situations where they're sort of sheltered, and they're there because it's proper and it's appropriate to be in that position. Like, Glinda being part of the machine, and sort of Fiyero also being part of the machine, and like, what it's appropriate for him to stay with Glinda because it's the most appropriate thing for him to do. But then again, he doesn't like it. He fights it, and then his own truth is that he wants to be with Elphaba. So he fights the establishment in his own way as well. And the same thing with Bach. It's more acceptable for him to stay with what's her name again? Elphaba's sister, basically. But it's not that's not where his heart lies. Like, he's in love with Glinda, and he wants to leave. Like, it doesn't matter that it's more appropriate for him to, like, be that, but he wants to go against the establishment and what's been established between them, to actually follow his own path. And all these people pay a price when they try and break away from the establishment, but ultimately they are set free in a sort of way. Even Elphaba, to a certain degree, they pay a price for it, but ultimately they do end up living the life that they want. Maybe Bach, not necessarily. I think he's left hanging there with a lot of hatred towards everyone. But I would say Fiyero and Elphaba definitely, and Glinda as well, I would say, in a way, in a very bittersweet way, they all achieve sort of what they actually wanted, which is, freedom and doing something good. Yeah, so that's the truth, and revolution, again, this is like walking into the revolution and propaganda. These are all important themes of the movie, I think. Another very interesting one is just the concept of the revolution itself, that sometimes, I know I already touched slightly on it, but sometimes real revolutions cannot necessarily happen by fighting from the outside and, like, basically going against the establishment. Sometimes it really is more viable to, like, fight within the establishment and make your way up from there, get to the top, and then revolutionize the establishment from within. And that's what Glinda does, but Glinda doesn't do it completely out of her own volition, or, like, she's not actively doing it at first until later on when she makes that promise to Elphaba and sees a way forward for her to actually do some good, which is to basically turn the tables from inside. And yeah, again, like the power she accumulates in terms of social capital from within the capital, basically from within the city and like Oz, is at times unintentional. Like she goes along with it because it's her only way to survive, but then she takes the power that she's managed to accumulate, social power that she's had, and she uses that for good, which is what really matters, I think, here, and redeems Glinda, I think, overall as a character, because in a way, also, not everyone, actually, none of the characters are actually morally, pure in a way. There's always something about each character that is like quite questionable at times, and that's the whole purpose of the story as well, is to show them they were as actual complex characters. Of course, like the same thing as Fiyero. Fiyero didn't have to like accept the marriage situation with Glinda, and didn't have to like, and was quite mean and disrespectful to leave Glinda on the altar. He could have easily walked out multiple times before, but he didn't, because he was sort of for a while complacent with being in the establishment and doing what's proper, but ultimately he did do good, I think, basically, right? And partially also Elphaba, I think, in a way, because she was so focused on the revolution and exposing the wizard and all of that, she sort of put aside her family, and her sister goes bonkers, basically full crazy, partially because when their dad died, no one was next to her. Like Elphaba was away, but Elphaba was fighting the revolution, all that stuff. So by mere absence, she basically couldn't support her family, made her sister go crazy, which ultimately I think also is what, by a chain of events, sort of puts her in a situation where she makes Bach turn into the Tin Man and all that stuff. Like it's all connected in a way. But yeah, so every single character is morally grey in a way. Some of them are more on the evil spectrum. Marble. I don't know what's her deal. That's the only thing. I'm like, why are you so fucking mean? Like, why are you so so evil? But we don't know. The wizard, I guess. I think it's. I'm not saying it makes sense. What he does is very evil, like engaging the animals and like building this entire propaganda machine to like legitimize his place and all that stuff, and just basically exploiting the animals. It's just horrible what he does. But I think in a way, that's what he was doing for survival at the beginning. Maybe, I don't know. He could have done something so different. I don't know. Like there's like those two characters are definitely like on the evil side, but Glinda, Elphaba, Fiyero, all of them, all the other characters, I think they're all in a sort of like this weird, not weird, but like very real, I guess, state, very like gray area. Yeah. So I think that, again, the story is very complex, very nuanced, very challenging, and very thought provoking, which is I love. Partially why I still think this is one of the best stories ever, musical, periods, whatever, everything. It just works so well. So and there's a lot of interesting stuff. Of course, there's more so like at the beginning in the first movie. Talks about racism and all that stuff as well. It's very poignant, and also there's a lot about feminism and how women navigate places of power that are not built for them. And we have the two different examples with like Glinda and Elphaba, of course, that continue on in this movie as well. So yeah, there's so many different like topics that you could talk about like for ages. So that it's stuff that you could literally write essays on. So that's the incredible part. I think what really ultimately we should keep in mind when talking about this movie, and maybe sometimes unduly criticizing it. Maybe because I've seen criticisms. Critics are not really loving this movie, the second part, because they think the storytelling is not as good in this one, and there's a lot of stuff that is not as linear as the first one, also in terms of tone and everything else. And I can also sort of understand it, but I think what really is troubling people overall, and this I guess is a good segment to get into, because I can just perfectly start talking about good and bad aspects of the movie. I think overall this movie is very, very, the second movie, I mean, very close to the play itself, rather than the first movie was a good balance between proper blockbuster, actiony, but also emotional and like close to the actual play and musical and overall the original material. This one is more, it's very close to the original material. I would say the second part is much more musical, like much more play adjacent. Like there's a lot more singing, I think, a lot more reprises, and it's more like theatrical, and there's definitely more like musical theater moments here that maybe are not, I would say, like, and definitely they're not for everyone. I would say I love musical theater, I enjoy these things so much, so to me it's a plus maybe, but I can imagine for people it might not be as entertaining as the first movie, also because this second part is not as fun. It's more serious, way more depressing and sad, because again, because of the ending and everything else, and how the characters have to like be separated and all that stuff. So there seems to be less of balance in this movie, the way the story is told and everything else, and it's just, I think, because the actual play is like that as well. But here's where my issue comes in, I think. I don't think I am of the camp, I guess, of the idea that they shouldn't have split the movie in half. Sorry, the story in half into two movies. I think in a way it makes sense, and it's where the Avengers comparison comes in a second as well. But I think it makes sense in a way because money wise and marketing wise, is just propping up the second movie even more, and it is breaking records. Like the official numbers, I don't know if they've come out, but they are already breaking the records. The biggest opening domestically in the US for any movie this year, and they're also opening higher than the original movie, the first part. So they're definitely the marketing wise, like the marketing part of the movie, it worked. Like it just makes sense to split it in two, because you can reuse the same tools to sort of and same merch and everything else that you already used for the first movie to sell the second movie as well. Plus, again, because the first movie was so big and it got a lot of fans, more people were interested in it. More people were like I've latched onto it later on. So you've already prepared your audience for the second part a bit more, and more people are already immediately interested in it. So makes sense marketing wise, but I think story wise and storytelling wise, it just doesn't work as well, because I think the two parts are so widely different in terms of tone and everything else, that I think would have worked better as the actual play, which is basically an entire story told in 4 hours. I would have sat through 4 hours of a movie, to be fair, if they wanted to. I think that would have still worked better than splitting it in two parts, I think. Also because apart from that, the better songs are in the first half of the play, so which means the first part of the story, like in the first movie. Second part, they have two new original songs, which I don't think are nearly as memorable, anyways, as the songs in the first movie. And even No Good Deed Goes Unpunished, or like For Good actually is the only, I think I would say, is the only song that really sticks with you. So yeah, there's less of that. This part is more like dramatic. It's more emotional. There's more betrayal. There's more that, and the tone is more like somber. The first part is more like fun, and there's a bit of everything. There's a bit of also the sad part and the somber part, but also there's more of there's more action. There's more freshness to it. And I think it would have worked just to like have that as a full story instead of having the two movies, because it makes them look so different and so uneven in a way. So yeah, and also I do think it's quite hard to like step into the story again if you haven't watched. So that's why sometimes the double feature that they were doing in some theaters worked well, because you would step right into the second part immediately. So I think it's difficult otherwise to like get into the second part, because you're just picking up from a very awkward space, I think, in a way. Like, it makes sense to break the movie in, like the story in that part where like Elphaba denounces the wizard and goes away. But here's where my Avengers comparison starts, right? Um, I think in a way, like because the Avengers, they've done the same thing. Like they've split, what was it, Infinity War and Endgame. They're two movies, one story, but two movies, and I think that worked very well. Very well, marketing wise, of course, it's the same thing as Wicked. Like it makes sense why they've done it, but I also think story wise that made much more sense because it's an action movie. Like I don't think it works quite as well to like break a story that's more about like morals and big ideas and big concepts into two parts. Like it's hard to like make you stop thinking about something and then pick the same idea back again, the same theme once more. Like it's difficult, I think, to split the same concept, the same idea, the same message into two movies. The Avengers is not about messages, like the Avengers movies are not about messages, and it's more about action, and it because I like Infinity War still had a big explosive actiony moment in the first one, in the first half, and then the second half was sort of like a payback situation movie, like where they had to like fight against. There was an easy resolution. There was a bad villain that was taken down and all that stuff. So it sort of made sense. Like you can split easily action into multiple movies. To be fair, it doesn't really have to and it's not a complex story. The one that the Avengers movies tell in a way. So yeah. So I think that's why it's sort of like story wise at least it worked better because they do feel, and also I think another thing is that the Avengers movies have so many characters. So, like they have a lot of characters compared to like this one, even more than here, and it makes sense to have different movies, a couple of movies, because in this way you can explore multiple characters in a better way, in a way, sort of like you have more characters, you can like split them out, like spread them out and spread them around a bit more. Here it's still quite contained. Like it's if you think about it, the main group is just Elphaba, Fiyero, Glinda, and the wizard. Like it's technically these main four characters that we really really like pay a lot of attention to. Like Madame Marvel, we barely, well, we see her a lot, but we barely know anything about her motivations, and that's sort of I think that one of the complaints I have about the story in this movie is that we don't really know much about her motivations. Like it does an incredible job. The movie does an incredible job to like explore the motivations and the different characteristics of each character, like in terms of the main group. But everyone else is sort of like set aside, and it's fine. But again, the Avengers have so many characters, so it makes sense to like I think split it in different parts. But yeah. I mean, happy to disagree, of course, with this because I don't think there's a clear answer on it. But I think, yeah, if they did a single movie, it would have been a bit more digestible. Methinks. Yeah. No good deed goes unpunished. But overall, I think the movies are still quite exceptional. I think it still is very bubbly. There's no, I think, also moments when I was like in the first movie there's stuff that is like very very fun in terms of choreos and everything else, but here the really big moment that I really really enjoyed was when Glinda and Elphaba and the wizard talk and like have this like musical moment where, and it's very good because also the message of the entire piece is about truth and all that stuff, and that one was incredible. Like just the sets and everything they were so good. So yeah, I would still say go watch it because I think it's still an incredible movie, and it you do need to see it, I think, to like have a proper ending anyways to the story that you started already with the first movie. So, and it does wrap up quite nicely, and it's still quite bittersweet, and I think it's still a very thoughtful movie that makes you think quite a lot. And why it's not as strong as the first movie, I think it's still a great accomplishment, and it is an iconic piece in media, I think, and in popular culture. It will go ahead, like it will go on to be like an iconic intellectual property in a way. Like, that's it. They made it, and I think people walking out of this, like specifically Ariana Grande and Jonathan Bailey, those two are locked in, like with the Hollywood machine now. Ariana, I've been seeing so many praise about her performance, and she deserves them all. So good. It's like she really elevates her performance here even more. I think she really takes it home, and I think just Jonathan Bailey, just eye candy of the century. Like he's just so charming, so good looking, and he does his job well. His role is not like wildly different from the first movie, or he doesn't have to like have a lot of think pieces in this one, but he's still super charming on screen, and I think that's for male actors specifically that goes a long way, and I do expect him to be in several other movies moving forward. So, as for Cynthia Erivo, I think she is super super talented. I think she really rocks it, but I don't know if I think Hollywood would put her in other movies or like bigger projects. I also haven't heard anything. I think she's still one foot into the Broadway and the West End situation, like the theater, and she shines there because her theatricalness is just unmatched. Like no one gets to her level. No one here in the cast like gets to her level of theatrical performance. So and she's still an incredible actress regardless. So, and her singing is just impeccable. So kudos to all of them. Like they just literally left a great mark on the scene, and I think we have some new stars coming up in Hollywood. So yeah. Anyways, this is the episode. Go watch the movie, please. Don't you've listened to this, or maybe watch it first and come back to this, and leave comments down below on what you think and what your thoughts are about pretty much anything that I've discussed. Yeah, I'll leave you guys to the sponsor of the episode, but don't leave because I also have some songs of the week at the end of the episode. Yeah. If you, like me, are a big fan of pop culture and you love music, sports, movies, or anything that is related basically to pop culture, stop immediately what you're doing and go to allglory.com, because All Glory has everything. I'm talking over 300,000 official licensed items, graphic tees, hoodies, hats, accessories, you name it. Music fans, this is your paradise. They've got every genre covered with iconic artists like Bob Marley, The Beatles, The Rolling Stones, Grateful Dead, Metallica, and 1,000 more. Sports fans, you are set too, because All Glory has official gear from the NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, and NCAA, so you can rep your team in full style as well. Plus, All Glory has tons of entertainment TV merch, quirky gifts, movie teas. So if you're looking for a specific gift for one of your friends that loves pop culture or TV shows, please go look at Old Glory, because they have, again, everything, every lifestyle brand. There's literally something for everyone. They've been a family-owned superstore since 1969, and they ship very, very fast, same day, with free standard shipping on every order in the US. So gear up at allglory.com and use my promo code for the biggest exclusive discount, which is 15% off everything. Again, this is allglory.com, and you can use my code Overshare Pamphlet for 15% off. Now, to finish off the episode, we got to talk about the songs of the week, because I haven't done that in a bit. So we have to add songs to my playlist. You can find the playlist again as usual on Spotify. You can just search for the Overshare Pamphlet dash whatever month and year we're in. So this is gonna be for the November playlist. And yeah, this is the last episode of the month as well. So go check it out before we start a new playlist in December. So context for these songs, I guess, overall, is that I'm building a Thanksgiving playlist for this Thanksgiving, and I've been re-listening to so many old songs, like 2010s, 2000 music, because I don't know, that really screams but also like old stuff like 90s and 70s and 80s music, because that to me like just brings the festive spirit in me and just screams friendship. My specific vibe that I was going for is basically just songs that could like they're very winter or fall coded, but they're not openly Christmassy songs. Like they're Christmas adjacent songs, but not they're festive. Festive songs, but also very very much about friendship or just this youthful feeling that they give you. So there's a lot of like 2014, 2010s music. Literally, the Vamps are on this. One Direction is on this playlist, but through that, I've listened to a lot of songs, but I still have some good additional stuff. I have Availability by Ethel. This is a very, very strong R&B song. Really, really love it. I think you guys should go and listen to it. It's very, very catchy, extremely catchy. R&B pop, I would say, mostly. Very, very cool. I really enjoy it. And also her voice is just gorgeous. I don't know much about Ethel, but just gag overall. Then I'm making the case for this basically, right? I think personally that Father Figure by Taylor Swift is a Christmas song or like a festive, I guess, song. Well, like definitely winter related, but like definitely in another life it would have been a Christmas song. And I'm not sure if I put it in my. No, I don't think I put it in my previous play when the movie. Oh, sorry, when the October release when the album came out. But she's going in the November one. She is Father Figure is just that song. I think with distance from the album a bit for a while, like it came out like more than almost 2 months ago basically. This is the standout track from that album. I think it's just something that she's never done before. I think in terms of theme and storytelling, but also vibe wise, is so cool. I love it a lot. Great. Then here's where and that's in my thing. The father figure is in my in the Thanksgiving playlist. So that's that. Another song is on my Thanksgiving playlist is a very old song by Michael Bublé called "I Haven't Met You Yet." I used to love this song, and I'm so glad I rediscovered this because it's just crazy. I see I'm getting to jail because I'm talking about Michael Bublé. Please, it is a great song. It just puts me in such a good mood, and it's just such a wintry song. I just I was walking with this in my headphones, and I was just looking around. It's just such a good festive song. It just puts you in the mood to be with your friends and just basically fight the cold, I guess. So that's another one. I do want to talk about Del Water Gap. Don't know anything about this artist, but they've had a new album that came out at the beginning of November, I believe. And there's one song specifically here. It's called Small Town, Joan of Arc, which is just such a good song. It's basically about falling in love with this girl who's a very small town, small town girl that has a lot of very small worldview situation, not in a bad way, in a very good and charming way, and she's still a very feisty figure, small town Joan of Arc, a very energetic and strong person. It's very cool. In terms of vibe, it's very, actually I would say again, very wintry. It's very cool. I try to think what the acoustic guitar riff here reminds me of. It reminds me of something, but I can't quite place it. I don't know. Crazy. And then of course I have to talk about the deluxe of So Close to What by Tay McRae. There's one song on here that is just so cool. These deluxe tracks are so interesting because they're even more orchestral and theatrical than the actual album itself. There's this weird mix between trap and violins and strings, and there's one song specifically called Anything But Love that is just so good. She just goes in and she just fucks it up. It's just so good. She goes after this her ex, Like, she talks about how her friends don't like him and her family doesn't like him and I don't even like you anymore and all that shit. Like, and he's still very desperate about her, but it's just cunty music. It just puts you in a good mood and it just produced to the gods as well, I think. So I think that's the biggest gag of the season, honestly. But good stuff. Good stuff. And yeah, with that being said, these are my songs of the week. Please go listen to the playlist. Please follow me on all your fucking social medias, and just support me. Like, guys, please. I'm not asking for much. Like, you guys are so. I don't even know. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyways, enjoy the rest of the week and see you in the next episode next Monday. See you. Bye.